welcome to my channel, and welcome to my series called The God Universe. This is chapter 10, Consciousness and Brain Integration. This chapter is split into 4 videos or 4 parts, and this is part 3. And in this video, I am going to talk about the mesh filter limiter and how it makes you. So let's get started. So in the last video, we talked about the pineal gland. So you remember this structure, and it had tendrils, and it made connection to the electrical circuit box. And I said that the inner being takes a portion of itself and places it over this thing called the mesh filter limiter, and that the mesh filter limiter is connected to the physical functionality. But actually, what I really meant to say, I said this a lot in the last video, I kept saying physical functions of the body, but no, what I should have said, and what I meant to say, is the motor functions of the body, the movements, because you're the one that move yourself and move your body. That function, that functional part of the brain, the connection for that is through this mesh filter limiter. So now, so apologies for continually, if I confused you, I meant motor functions. Right, so in here, I'm now going to use an expanded, not expanded. I'm going to use, oh God, what's the word I'm looking for? A micro, oh God, just zoomed in version. I am now going to zoom in. I'm not going to zoom in to this portion and put this to one side and come here. So this, I know this is red, and I've got here yellow and brown. Don't worry about the colors. So this is a zoomed in portion of that mesh filter limiter, right? So this is a mesh filter limiter. I've actually got 2, and one of them, I've got this cotton wool thing. This is obviously I made this from Play-Doh. So, and this is the connector. So inside here is the connector, to the motor functions of the body, via the brain. So consciousness, you go through this mesh filter limiter and make this type of connection. These tendrils, this jellyfish tendrils connection is inside there, and make that connection, and now you're connected to the motor functions of the body, which is why you're the only one that can move yourself. Nobody can move your limbs. Okay, so I've got a zoomed in version of that. So I want to just describe this a little bit. This mesh filter limiter, there are actually 2 of them, placed back to back to each other. One of them is fixed, and the other one move in a rotational fashion, sort of back and forth in rotational fashion on top of the other. This one, it's actually a square cuboid, more like a cuboid lattice structure. So a structure that has holes in it. Can you see the holes? Sort of like a mesh, filter mesh. That's where the name that I've given it comes from. I'm sure there's a fancy Latin name somebody will come up with, but I just call it mesh filter limiter. So in any case, maybe there is actually it probably has a Latin name, some fancy Latin name. I don't know what it is, but for me, in my series, I'm going to call it the mesh filter limiter. So yes, so there are two of them. It's got this sort of lattice waffle sort of holes all across it, right? And it's cuboid shape. One side is very smooth and reflective, and the other side has got hairs. So I've used white cotton wool, but that's deliberate because I wanted you to see that it's not that it's rough, it's that it's got hairs, tiny, thousands and thousands of tiny hairs on the other side. So the bit with the hairs faces the connection, the jellyfish connection, and the bit with the smooth side faces, remember the mind, remember this mind box, this electrical circuit box. So the smooth side faces the mind. And so when the inner being takes a portion of itself and places it on there, it's placing it on the smooth sides, okay? I'll just take a quick look at my notes just to see that I've covered what I wanted to cover. Yeah, so one thing let me just mention is that as the name suggests, or as I've named it, you know, mesh filter limiter, that's what it does. It limits your ability as consciousness energy. Consciousness is a gestalt of energy, and has all these abilities and senses and everything else. So what this does is it limits that. It removes most of those energy. So because you have to think about it now, your inner being is and I'm sure I mentioned this in this video, your inner being your inner being creates these circuits, right? This electrical box circuit, but your inner being is actually the fullness of itself still. So you know, as in it's the full gestalt of energy. It's got all its full energies and powers and abilities. All its abilities that I said consciousness can do, the inner being can still do that. Yet you know that as a person, I can't work in different planes. I don't know how to do that, you know. And that's what this does. It's basically when the inner being puts a portion of itself over this organ, it removes most of those abilities that consciousness has. So when I say effectively, you're a dumbed down version of your inner being. That's not nice, is it? But that's what it is. You are the same as the inner being, just stripped. You're just not dumbed down, stripped down version. You're a stripped down version of the inner being because you're still attached to the inner being. You've just been stripped of most of your inherent abilities, and this organ in the brain does it. So I just wanted to say that also, I said that the inner being is connected to all areas of the brain with these tendrils, but this is more like information, sending information, receiving information. The inner being is not integrated into the physical body. It is connected to all the functions, so it knows what's happening where, but it is not integrated. It is not integrated and infuse the physical body until it goes through this organ. So you and so me and you are integrated into the physical body through this organ, and we connect to the motor function. One of these jellyfish tendrils inside there and that connects to the motor function of the brain, and therefore the rest of the body. Me moving my arm, I'm the one moving my arm. Nobody else is. And I mean, it's a silly thing to say, because you move your body, and you move your body without thinking. So we're so integrated into this body that we don't recognize, realize that the body is actually a tool that we use and we inhabit for a fixed amount of time. Anyway, let me carry on before I run out of time. Okay. So why would the inner being put themselves, sort of create this organ to create this organ to integrate and infuse with the physical form? Why? And the simple answer is interaction. Interaction with each other. So if you remember, I talked about the higher selves creating stories in their space, and I said in these stories they depict themselves as characters, and they also create scenarios, hundreds and thousands of scenarios, with anyone who. So the higher self creates stories and scenarios and depict themselves as characters within these stories, right? This organ is the way for the higher self to become that character in those stories, in the stories that they've created, those characters. This organ helps the higher self to be that. So, which is why I've said you are an extension of the inner being that is an extension of the higher self. That's essentially what I'm saying. Right. So I'm still on the first page, and look at the time. Right. So things like your personality, your preferences, and your ability is within consciousness, light, energy. These things are within consciousness, light, energy, and intensity. Well, within consciousness, light, energy, and as I've said, and I keep banging on about this, consciousness, light, energy has a variation of colors and intensities. So, what did I just say? So actually, what I'm trying to say is your personality, your preferences, your abilities are all on a range, are all on a scale, or they're not on a scale, they're all on scales, different scales, each with their own individual ranges, and the inner being sets a target for those characteristics, sets a target so that you can be a certain personality by using this mesh filter limiter. Okay, so when I'm talking about personalities, I'm referring to things like, say, intelligence, which I've talked about in the past. Consciousness intelligence is how quickly you take in new information and understand them, and your ability to interpret the data and sort of create new things from what you've learned. That's consciousness intelligence. So that is a trait. That's a personality trait that is on a scale. It's on a scale for you, or should I say it's on a scale for the higher self, for your higher self. So let's just talk a little bit more. Let me list some more personality so you understand what I mean by personality traits. So some of the other personality traits I'm talking about are charisma, confidence, being timid, being a procrastinator. Being a procrastinator. Have I said confident? Being that's a personality trait. All of this personality trait are all on their own individual spectrum scale, right? And then the other thing is abilities. And abilities, I'm talking more about in this instances, what you can do physically. So for example, let's say sports, running, football, swimming, how fast you can swim, or how good at swimming you are, how good at football, or how bad at football, like me. Like sporting abilities is on a range. And then you have things like the arts, singing, being able to sing, being able to write songs and music, being able to do both. That's abilities. You've got artists that sculptures, you got artists that paint pictures, you got photographers, digital graphic designers. These are all abilities, things that you can do. These things are all on the scale, and they are all on a scale, not on a scale, they're all on spectrums. They're all on individual spectrums. And though that spectrum, those spectrums is within your consciousness light energy. So all your characteristics, maybe I should say personalities, all your preferences, personality and abilities are all within your consciousness light energy. And so if we go back, I think if we go back to what is it? If we go back to where I did the video, I talked about the DNA forming the human physical self. I said that when consciousness infuses the human DNA, it defines those abilities. But that's because, so it's really when your consciousness light energy infuses your DNA and writes to it, what it's really doing, it's setting a target for your range in terms of your abilities. Can you see? Does that make sense? I'm really hoping this makes sense. Right, so all your abilities, what you can do, the reach, the length and breadth of your abilities, right, as an athlete, as a singer, as a photographer, the range of that is within the consciousness light energy, and your inner being sets a target within those. And so that when you pass through the mesh filter limiter, I should probably get a shorter word for this, mesh filter limiter, and infuse your DNA, and infuse the DNA with your light energy, you're now setting a target for what you will be as a person in this life, what you will be and what you will be doing. Okay, let me stop for a minute. So what I'm saying is that everything is your personalities are all in a number of spectrums or spectras, right? And that these spectrums are different. The ranges of the spectrums are different for every individual. And also that your inner being sets a target within this spectrum to make you who you are. Why? So that when we interact with each other, we set off a number of emotions within ourselves and between ourselves. And this, I don't know what happened to this range of emotion. We set off a range of emotion within ourselves and between ourselves, and this range and this emotions drives behaviors and actions. It's all about the emotions. So I'm going to explain this again using another prop I've made, so bear with me. I've got this here. I will come back to this in a minute. I just put it back there for the time being while I use this. Just don't want too much distractions. So I've made this sliding scale contraption, sliding scale board for just to illustrate my points that little bit more. I hope you can see everything. So there are two higher selves here. I'm trying to say two higher selves. There's one higher self in blue and another higher self in red. Okay, and I've got a number of a couple of personality traits and an ability. I just talked about that. So I've got intelligence, and underneath those traits, I've got a sort of a sliding scale with a number, a nominal number. I've just put this number in to try and illustrate my point about, number one, the differences between higher selves in terms of their scales. So look, if you look at this, for intelligence, for this higher self, their intelligence quotient factor, remember how quickly you can consciousness intelligence is how quickly you can learn, how quickly you can learn, how quickly you can understand stuff and use it to do other things, right? So there's a lot in intelligence here, but maybe I should really put it more as how quickly the speed at which you learn new things. Let's use that for intelligence, because intelligence has a lot of other things. The speed at which you learn new things here. On this scale, this higher self, I'm using this as a higher self because it starts with a higher self, and by the time it comes to the human being, it's just a point. The human being, us, that final, it's just a point on this scale, right? So what I'm trying to say is this higher self has a range 1 to 5 for how quickly they can learn new things, and this higher self has a range of between 4 and 9. Right? So now two higher selves, two different consciousnesses with intelligence, how quickly you can learn. If I move my slider to say 4 on that one, that's actually on this side, the far end of one consciousness, which means that there are other things that this consciousness can do down the left side, my left side of this scale, and this consciousness can't do. So if we're saying how quickly you can learn new things, this consciousness can certainly do it a lot faster than this consciousness. Still faster than you and I. I'm just saying. It's just so you know. And the other thing is, they all have the same number of traits. So even though here I've got intelligence, novelist, ambitious, this consciousness, this higher self here also has novelist and ambition, but this higher self number 2 will have a different scale. I've just picked these traits just to show that there is quite a large variation of traits that are within scales, and all of those are within your light energy colors. It's just, I don't know if this is getting through, or if this is clear, if I'm making this clear enough. So that's intelligence, and this is, I'm hoping I'm able to move this before it falls apart on me. I've been trying to hold this steady for a while without my slider falling out. Okay, so what have I mentioned? I said that there are different traits on different individual scales for each higher self. That's one. And then I've then described how with the different scales, it means that some of them won't have certain abilities because their ranges, because those abilities is outside their range. And it's the same. If you look at this consciousness, there are some abilities down this end which this consciousness can do, and this consciousnness, this higher self, cannot do. So this higher self has some abilities down this end, but this higher self, because it has a limit, there's a limit to this higher self's low end, and this higher self cannot achieve some of the things there. So when you go through evolution, when the higher self, when we now have evolution, what the higher self are trying to achieve is to extend this range, the ranges of these abilities. So this one will now be looking to extend and gain more abilities that end, and this higher self will now be looking to extend down towards the right and gain more abilities at this bottom end. Right? So in terms of abilities and personalities after evolution, your higher self is looking to extend the reach and the breadth of their spectrum, increase the range of their spectrum. So now, what else did I want to mention with this? The older higher selves, so the older consciousnesses, have wider ranges, right? So, and the newer consciousnesses have shorter and narrower ranges for for these abilities, but that's because the older consciousnesses. So like, for example, this guy's 1 to 5 here, higher self 1, higher self here is got 4 to 9. You will have consciousnesses that will have like 1 to 20, so they are just wider, and that's because they've been around longer and therefore have undergone more evolutionary cycle. So they've gone through evolutions and have therefore gained abilities this end and the other end. Okay, so I wanted to just mention that. So the thing about it is, when we interact with each other, we interact at a set point, because I keep talking about this interaction. Oh, please don't fall off. Yeah, I want to put this there, put that there. We interact at a set point, so put that one there, right? So let me just get this. Okay, so when we interact with each other, we interact as a static set point, right? For this guy, he's put his intelligence down here, as a novelist down here, ambitious ratio high, might be low, but you know, and like this. So when you can say, when these two higher self interact, so as a human being, it's a static. It's like one point in this one data point in all of this scales, right? So when we interact, we're interacting as as a type of character, and that interaction, like this, you might like someone. Move the interaction a bit there, maybe adjust it a little bit there, move this a bit down here, and then you might find that, ooh, you really fall in love with this other person, because now they have a different set of set point. Change the interaction even further and say, let's just move this all the same here, like so, and you find that actually you really dislike this person. You really, really dislike this person. So what I'm trying to show here is that we as individual exist as one static point on a range, on a number of scales, right, in a number of spectrums, in this life, in our life, in the life that we're living. We are one personality from all our consciousness, yeah, is one personality from all the range of personalities, you know, singing. So somewhere in my consciousness, I can sing, and I can sing within my range of consciousnesses. I can sing fantastically. I can write music, and they'll be really good. You know, I can do all of that stuff, and it's the same for you. But here now, in this life, I cannot sing, nor can I write music. This is an ability that I do not possess. I do not possess, right? So can you see in this, and that's because when I am interacting with others, I am interacting as this person, you know, this person with this set of set point in all of the spectrums. And as I interact with other people around me, I'm setting off different emotions within myself towards them, and also those emotions are going to drive actions and behaviors for me and for them. So and what I'm doing, and what the higher self is doing, is predicting, number one, the emotion for themselves, how they would feel. Remember, the higher self, in their stories and scenarios, have been predicting different scenarios, different stories in a wide range of scenarios. And they said, in this scenario, I am this person with this personality and this abilities and these preferences. And when I interact with consciousness, another consciousness, 2 or 3 or 4, that person, this is what's going to happen between us. We are going to like each other. We are going to be friends. We are going to fall in love. We are going to be enemies, you know. And so if we're going to be best of friends, this is how we will behave with each other, towards each other. This person will make me do this, and this is what they will do. So now this is what the higher self are predicting. They're like, as a static personality, when they interact with others, they will set off emotions which will drive actions and behavior. And we are the static personality. And that static personality is defined using the mesh filter limiter. I really hope that's clear. Okay. So let me just check my notes and just to be sure I've covered. Okay, I talked about, I don't know if I'll keep this. I just want to say, I talked about the higher selves. In their predictions, they in their stories and scenarios, they made predictions, and I've just talked about those predictions, saying, you know, this is the emotion that this person would ignite in me, and therefore this is the action that I will have, and this is the action that they will have. The thing about it is, the higher selves know this information or have this information, if you remember, because they exchange the information between each other for them to use in their space, in their evaluation space, right? So in their simulations, they've drawn emotional data between themselves to put in their simulations. So in their simulations, they've now churned out these predictions of how they would feel and react and behave and all the rest of it. They've put that out, and now we are the static personality, sort of here to prove or disprove those predictions. And so what I'm saying is, one of the biggest reason that we are here in this life is interaction. That's literally the biggest reason that we're here, to interact with each other. Because interaction sets off emotion, and those emotion drives behaviors and action. And those emotion, behaviors, and actions are what your higher self predicted would or would not happen. Here to disprove those predictions. Okay, stop for a minute. So we have all these personality traits. We are a a static setting in all of these numerous personalities, traits, and abilities. Sportsmanship, writer, singer, being Beyonce and not being able to sing like Beyonce, all of that, you know, as well as being ambitious, being a procrastinator, having confidence, all of that is all on spectrum. So how does consciousness set these? That's what we're going to talk about. With how does it set it with this organ? Let me show you. Let me describe it for you. Right. So consciousness, just thought of energies, as I keep going on and on, we have all of this. We have heat energy, light, electrical, fusion, and filters out sound, thought, impact, and magnetic, right? This is all the energies within your own consciousness. And this organ takes out the sound, thought, impact energy, and magnetic energy. I've talked about, I think in chapter 6, impact energy and magnetic energy, if they are in the same direction and twisted about each other, then those energy and the effect of those energy is neutralized. Okay, so to take out these two, your higher self, I told you one of them moves, the other one is attached to the structure, and the other one moves. So what happens is not the higher self, the inner being pretty much just moves this like back and forth. So as you are integrating and infusing the DNA, I mean, I'm lifting this, but what I mean is they're together, and your highest and the inner being is rotating very fast. I can't do it very fast. It's rotating the top mesh filter limiter, right, as it goes through and connects to the motor functions. So that's how those two are taken out. Thought energy, as you know, is a combination of light and sound energy is removed, is absorbed, not say removed, it's absorbed by the tiny hairs on the other side. And remember, it's attached like this, it's attached with the hairs facing inwards, so the sound energy is absorbed and removed that way. And finally, that leaves light, and light energy is let through, but I mean, heat energy, limited heat energy goes through because you're the one that keep the body warm. Electrical energy, again, this is signals. This is in limited form, but it's more when you send electrical impulses, and fusion energy is used in the body. Fusion energy is used in the body to build muscles, build cells. As you grow, you're building muscles and cells using fusion energy. Anyway, so all of those passes through and is utilized in the physical form, right? Your light energy, however, I said there's a smooth side facing the mind. And so your light energy, what happens is that smooth side is also reflective. And there's also there's like a degree of reflection. I think what I'm trying to say is it is either super reflective or not as reflective, I think, right? So for some people, this is super reflective, and therefore most of their light energy is reflected back in there. And so when you look here, within their range, right? So within their personality trait and range, you might find that most of their static numbers will be at this end. This doesn't want to pull this across here like so. You see what I mean? Because they've reflected most of their light energy, and that stays in the mind. And for others, if it's not as reflective, it's still reflective, but not as reflective, you find that perhaps this has just come off this darn thing. You find that we're now towards this end, because most of your light is being allowed through into there. And the truth is, nobody knows where your static values, what are the values, especially in relation to others. You're just one part of a range. So who you are today in this life, don't know. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what my range is of these personalities and where I fall. It's just, all I'm trying to say is this device, organ, this is how it manages these personality traits, by reflecting quite a good number, or half of it, or most of it, or by letting through a large amount of the light and everything else. Okay, so have I talked about how all of this have been let through? Right, I think I have actually. So yeah, so that is how this organ is used to change you from a consciousness that's like super, that's consciousness that's like a super senses, intelligence, can do multi-dimension, to be a stripped down version that you see in the mirror. That you see in the mirror today. And that you is still amazing, because, as I said also, your light energy is unique to you. Your range of this is unique to you. And so therefore, what you should really be doing is asking yourself, what am I here to do? Ask your inner being, what am I here to do? Who am I here to interact with? Anyway, should I stop now? Oh, hang on. There's something I just remembered. So I said that you're integrated with the brain, but your inner being is not integrated with the brain. Your inner being is the fullness. Your inner being is the fullness, is still the fullness of consciousness. That energy is still the fullness of consciousness, and you're the stripped down version using this thing. But now this, and your inner being is linked to the brain, even though your inner being is still the operator in the control room and linked to the brain like this. You are the one integrated with the brain, and therefore, when I said that the brain has a single attention, as in you can only do one thing at a time. I said this in which video did I say this? I think it was the intelligence video. You can only do one thing at a time, and it's because our brain is at a certain temperature. Above this temperature, you can have multiple attention. You can attend to multiple things simultaneously. So the brain, but the thing is, and I also said that the brain only functions within this limited temperature. So even though you as consciousness, when the temperature of the brain is increased, you actually can't do very much with the body. Although you as consciousness can have multiple attention, the brain is pretty much I don't know, is the word paralyzed. It's just ineffective. The brain does not function above certain temperature. So that's like you could call it consciousness. Use hard codes to make sure we only have one. To make sure we only have one attention. We can only attend to one thing at a time. By ensuring that the brain itself will ensuring that the human brain will not function above 45 degrees C. 45. It's not a lot. You have a fever at 40, you are just delirious in any case. But yeah, so actually this doesn't remove the attention part of consciousness. It's the temperature of the brain. The ability of the brain to function within a temperature range is what limits your attention. So if you get a fever, maybe you'll be able to get yourself to do multiple things. That's just silly. Anyway, that's the end for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.